Perfect. Okay, so coming back to the agenda, we are now moving on to a session where we have invited a number of the producers across the UK to come and share a little bit of what they've been doing. I think it's fair to say that we're all taking our initial steps with this, and nobody, I think, would claim that they've completely cracked it. But I think there are some great examples of where some efforts and activities internally and externally are really starting to try and take on board some of these principles and really support us with moving towards the vision that we have. So what we're going to do is we're going to have a sort of 5-minute view from 4 producers, myself included. I talk as if it's other people, but I'll be one of those stories today. And then we'll have an opportunity for Q&A. So, hopefully this can give some ideas, spark some inspiration, and you can use the chance today to chat to, any of us, and we can talk about what we've done and how we've taken that on board. So I can see Warwick on screen. So why don't we start with Warwick from Renegade Urban Winery.
Fine, thanks a million. Thanks. I mean, I guess my first instinct here is I've got a slight feeling of imposter syndrome, in that, we really are a very small winery in East London, and we haven't got a big workforce, and I am white and male, and we are majority male, just slightly over majority male in terms of our employees, and we have a small number of people of colour within our organization, but we are, and I think this is one of the things that's difficult for very small businesses, that you can have quite big skews in diversity just because you're so small. And but it's something that I'm really conscious of personally, and we really try and address. And being in London, it's often on the forethought of many people, especially our customers. But I guess the reason I've kind of being asked on here is because our labels are quite different, and I sent Lindsay a picture of them. I don't know if she can share that picture, or I can.
Let me find
but essentially what we do is we try and showcase diversity on our labels, and we do this by putting pictures of our customers on the bottles, predominantly their eyes, but on other parts of the label you see their full face. And the rationale really was just to showcase the diversity of people that drink our wine. There you go, our wine, but also kind of wines in general. That's really what it is. In case you're not aware, they are just customers. They're not trade customers. They are individuals who buy our wine, and they can live anywhere in the UK or anywhere around the world as long as they can make it to a photo shoot. And the way we do it is that we ask people every year on social media and through every other medium possible to put themselves forward. Basically, we then choose internally a nice mix of people, black, white, old, young, people of color, transgender, basically anyone, disabled or fully abled. We've got a guy, an ex-services guy who was hit by an IED in Afghanistan that lost both of his legs and one arm. We've got one of our new wines coming out, Amy. So all the wines are named after the people. One of our new wines, Amy, she's deaf, she's hearing impaired. One thing we also do is we don't ask people which wines they want to be. We just try and give them a complete mix of styles and colors and types. And the interesting thing when I heard from Scott earlier about quality rather than also equity rather than equality, is that it became apparent to me as well when I started doing this that we actually needed to put a slightly higher percentage of people on the bottle that were female and a slightly higher percentage than the average of people that were of color, because even if you put it in line with what you think the population is or what you think makes sense to you, often it still has a kind of slightly white and male bias. So over the years, we've kind of tried to move to being slightly more biased towards people of color and women and transgender. And we've got one transgender person coming out this year. Her name is Katie. She used to be called Ian. She actually works on a vineyard in Essex. But yeah, I mean, this is our, I mean, again, we just did it to showcase the diversity of people who drink our wines, rather than thinking about it as a diversity and inclusion element to the business. And I guess we've got a lot more to do. One thing I was going to say was that we have had really good feedback from this, especially from people of colour. I remember being we've got a little winery bar in East London, and I've been sat there while Black people have basically said, it's just nice to be seen. You know, it's nice to be seen that we also drink wine. And I've heard that a lot, actually. Yeah, that's kind of, I think that's kind of all I was going to say. We've got a lot more to do. We're not the world's most diverse business. We're tiny, but it's something that's in our mind. And I think doing this has been a good thing, you know, generally.
Brilliant work, thank you. There's already comments come through in the chat, but we will pause on them until we've gone through all the examples. But we'll come on as a panel at the end. But they really are stunning and a really great example. And it's great to hear the feedback you've had. But great, thanks. So maybe now I can welcome Ruth and Helen from Simpsons.
Yes, thank you, Lindsay. And thank you for asking Simpsons to contribute to this best practice session. Good morning, everyone. We've been asked to speak about D&I specifically in marketing this morning, but before we address that, and Helen's going to do that for me, I wanted to start with a premise that any D&I marketing policy essentially needs to be driven by a culture of inclusivity within the organisation as a whole. At Simpsons, we have a very small team, especially compared to the likes of a Moet Hennessy, but it is a very international and very gender balanced team, which thus far has evolved actually very naturally and organically. With regard to gender balance, you know, my husband and I established this business 10 years ago, and we've been running our French business, wine business, together for 20 years. So we each recognize and respect our particular strengths. And I believe this obvious senior management equity and respect has helped attract female applicants for roles right across our business, from the vineyard into winery and production, and right through into the more traditional administration, sales and marketing roles. So we currently have a perfectly balanced 50-50 male-female ratio. Given our international background and experience in France, we've also attracted a very international team. So we have team members from Australia, New Zealand, South Africa, the US and Slovakia, something which we feel has really enriched our internal culture. Our main concern, obviously, a bit like Renegade, is that we don't have any representation currently from the disabled, the BAME or LGBTQI community. So as an agriculturally based rural business, we do find that the latter two areas are particularly challenging to achieve due to the just immediate makeup of population in our area. However, this is an aspiration. We definitely have an aspiration to try and attract more candidates from these identified groups, and you know, ultimately would like to engage in things like sixth form colleges, tertiary education establishments, that sort of thing, to highlight the multitude of opportunities that exist within the industry. We realise that we share the struggle with a lot of other small rural-based wine and spirit producers, and we benefit from the being part of a forum with Walpole, which is the organisation that represents the British luxury sector, and that it is also for properly focusing in on DE&I now within its membership. But we've discussed this underrepresentation with smaller distilleries in the, for example, in the Lake District in Scotland, whose population is less diverse. And with them, we've discussed the fact that we need to focus on celebrating diversity of experience within our teams through different backgrounds, education and life experience. So, for example, we've just taken on a 19-year-old vineyard apprentice, putting him through the Pumpton course. He joined the army after school, but dropped out, now looking for work experience and qualification. In contrast, we've also got a winery apprentice who's just started in her late 20s, just quit her job as a highly trained tax accountant in the city and wants to learn winemaking from the bottom up. So clearly very different life experiences, but each, you know, again, enrich the internal culture of our business. So I could just go on to that first slide. Sorry, Lindsay. I'm about to hand this over to Helen to talk about specifics, but it's with this spirit of inclusivity internally and an aspiration to improve that we move into how we market Simpsons outwardly. You can see from the first slide that we've taken a step back to look at exactly what diversity is in marketing. And that is namely the makeup of your audience and their demographics, and then look at how we become more inclusive by shaping our culture to allow diversity to thrive. So our aspiration generally is to create content that truly reflects the diverse communities our company serves. And in doing this, we want to elevate diverse voices, role models, and decrease cultural bias. So I'm going to hand over to Helen to talk through the next two slides. Helen's our brilliant marketing and communications manager, and she's going to give you a bit more detail about how we strive to achieve this.
Thank you so much.
Just going to...
Perfect. There we go. Sorry about that. So thank you very much, and thank you for inviting us to speak as well today. So my name's Helen, and I'm the Marketing and Communications Manager here at Simpsons Wine Estate. I joined 5 years ago, and then in 2019 I started on a more marketing communications focused roles. That's with PR, social media, all of our digital touch points as well, so website, e-commerce. I'd like to stress we are a really small team. And also, this is a journey. So what we're going to be sharing with you today are things that we've started, but as we've discussed across this morning, we're, by no means we haven't conquered it all. And I don't think, to be honest, we ever will. It's a constantly evolving and emerging thing that we need to be looking at. So I just wanted to share with you a few bits and pieces. So for us, we create content that truly reflects the diverse communities that our company serves. And I think since I started, there has been a real seismic change in terms of marketing, and particularly online as well. So 2020, we had quite a few events that occurred and that were catalysts for this change, primarily with the pandemic. That was quite a massive global disruptor that we've not really seen before on this scale. And I think it really changed the way people were interacting, particularly online when we were stuck at home in lockdowns. That was our main access to the world and also to our consumerism as well. But then we also had events such as the Black Lives Matter movement, also disruptions in supply chains, so whether that was due to the pandemic and also Brexit as well, climate focus. And I think people really started to think more about what they're consuming online as well, and where they're interacting with different brands and the way that they're accessing different products. And I think it's not a case now that people can just go out there with their products and advertise just the products. People are looking for a one-stop shop. What are you offering your clients? What's your ethos? How are you communicating this? How are you engaging with your client base as well? So I think things have really started to change, and people are looking for much more of a deeper and more meaningful connection with the brands that they're engaging with. So if I could have the next slide, please. Thank you. So for us, just to quickly, because I know we haven't got a lot of time, I just wanted to go through some of the various areas that we have been focusing on and things that have been going well so far. But I think, we still have areas we recognise that we need to be working on. So firstly, I think it's really important for people to be going away and thinking about what is authentic to your estate and your brand. I think there are so many areas that need to be considered in this conversation going forward, but it has to start with you, and what does your brand mean to you, and then how can you authentically communicate this, and what is your messaging going forward, and engagement with your client base and partnerships as well. And then that kind of radiates outwards as you move forward. So for us, we do it internally within our team, which Ruth has touched upon. Also in the wider industry, even being here today and starting these discussions and talking about the journey overall for the wider English wine industry. But then also in partnerships. So we work with a couple of local charities and looking to supporting them, whether it's partnerships with other brands or collaborators, or maybe some other communicators out there as well. How are you championing that diversity and that inclusion, and how are you engaging with people in different areas? So I think that's really important. We also have a really diverse range of wines. So for example, we actually produce 4 different Chardonnays here. They're all high quality English wines, but they've got different styles, also different price points as well. So that really opens up that accessibility into the market. So whether it's somebody popping into Waitrose on a Saturday, they're not too sure about what they fancy and they see our wine on the shelf, all the way through up. Last year we launched a still wine Magnum Chardonnay, which is £100. So you've got that diverse range of different accessibility, and also with our experiences as well. And I think one of the really key things that came out as well over the last couple of years, there's been a lot more online interaction as well. So whether that's Instagram lives or online tastings, that I think has really opened up that accessibility to people being able to join in the conversation. Whether you might not be able to hop on a train and go to a tasting, but you can have that wine delivered into your living room and tune in when you can. So I think there are lots of different creative ways that we could be looking at this going forward. Also, we've got different trade representations. So we work with different partners with our wines, whether that's Naked Wines or working with our local village shop who've been supporters from the beginning, which has been really, really helpful, all the way through national distribution. So it's not just a kind of London and Southeast centric focus, and also our export markets. And I think that's something to consider as well in terms of your communication if you are looking to export or working with different export markets. What does your social media or your website, how are you interacting and engaging on an international level as well? We have been seeking to champion a diverse range of voices in the industry, so different wine communicators, whether it's masters of wine, people writing for broadsheets, often things behind paywalls, but then looking at as well people with blogs, people just starting out in wine communication, different influencers, and perhaps beyond the wider wine industry as well. So maybe you want to tap into travel or other things that are really relevant to your estate as well, different areas. I think it's also really important to utilise your marketing as a voice, but also as a way of listening to your consumers. What are their needs, and what kind of things do they want to be seeing you doing online and engaging with the community, whether you wanted to utilise their content as a user-generated content, or again, one of the things as such a small team that we like to do is look at what other brands are doing, maybe people trailblazing the diversity and inclusion, and seeing how they are interacting, what they're bringing to the table, and how they're starting these dialogues and conversations online as well. So I think that can be really useful for smaller producers who are not really sure where to start. Maybe start listening to how other people are engaging in this conversation going forward, and I think that's been really helpful for us. But as I said, I think one of the key things as well is just recognising that we've still got areas to improve on, and having that commitment to diversity and inclusion going forward as well. So I think it's all thinking about how we best can authentically do that within our own wine estates, and what that core messaging is for us going forward. So yeah, thank you.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Helen and Ruth. Great to see. I love the tasting, the pairing with the Chinese New Year. I think it's a really good example of something that we can all do really easily. So great. Thanks so much for sharing. Again, lots more chat coming through, but we'll save it for the end of these discussions. So now happy to hand over to Sam Linter from Bolney.
Hi, thanks, Lindsay. Um, I'll make this fairly quick if I can, but I just wanted to just talk a little bit about our experience at Bolney. And when I started in the English wine industry, it was in the mid-90s, so it's showing my age now. And when I started, there was only 2 other female winemakers, and I became the 3rd one. And getting involved in the industry in a more inclusive way, joining South East Vineyard Association, UKVA board, and things like that I did over time. I actually found the industry to be very chauvinistic at that time. Not everybody, but mostly it was. And it was actually really quite a tough environment. So that made me really conscious of that, and was there anything I could do in my own way to help change that? And I took a decision to actually employ women in key roles at Bolney, because there weren't really women in key roles in the industry at all at that time. And that's what I did. And I took on another winemaker to work with me as I moved up to run Bolney, and she was female, and the same with our vineyard manager. And that was a conscious decision to do that. And at the time I thought, great, I'm really helping here, bringing in some more gender diversity. We're very close to Plumpton College here, and we get a lot of students groups coming round to look around the winery and have a chat with us. And they were beginning over time to see more and more females on the Plumpton courses as well. And they were encouraged by the fact that we had females working here at Bolney, and that felt like a really good thing to do. But by doing that, I had brought in an unconscious bias, a term that's being used a lot today, and became non-inclusive towards others. And then became aware of that when there was an incident here at Bolney, and I just wanted to share this with you. We had an applicant for a job with a physical disability. This person was definitely the best person for the role, but I was asked by the person interviewing whether we should offer the person that job because maybe our customers might find that disability difficult. We did employ that person, of course we did, but what brought home to me was that we had a culture here that people felt that maybe that was an issue and they needed to check, and that wasn't right. It was right, and in actual fact, the person is still with us. They have been an amazing member of staff and brought so much to the business, and there hasn't been any difficulties at all, which I'm really pleased to say. So I realised that the culture at Bolney was not right at that time, and then if it would only work if I led that. I think let's go back to something Scott said earlier about the MD leading it, dropping it down. And so it started with me. And at the time I thought the thing to do is just to embrace what was actually going on is the best way that I could. And I'm just summarising it. I acknowledged to myself that actually it's human nature to be wary of people that are different from ourselves. And the more different people are from us, the more wary we feel. But every single one of us is different, unique. We all have experiences and skills and natural abilities that we can bring into any situation. And if we only employ people like ourselves or are friends with people like ourselves, we're going to miss out on all of that and the benefit it brings to us, our teams, and our business culture and success. So having got my head around that concept, that really helped me then to embrace this into how I talked to people and my team within Bolney, and that over time gradually filtered down. Once I had embraced that, everybody else started to see that. We started to see a much more diverse culture, and then set of people being employed into the company, and this really started to happen fairly organically. We didn't have a policy, we didn't tick any boxes to say we're going to employ this person or that person. It just became a culture when it was completely inclusive, and there was hopefully less bias or less unconscious bias going on. So it just happened. But I haven't got that completely right. We haven't got that completely tied down. And we're still working on it. And I find also new people coming in because we don't have a policy. We do disrupt the culture. I make mistakes, the team makes mistakes, and that culture can get disrupted. So we think it's important to do a policy. We actually have now started at Bolney a D&I group of a team within Bolney who feel very passionately about it, and they've now started up a group and they're putting a policy together. But for me, whilst I think that's really important, and when we're interviewing people and employing people, we're making it quite clear this is the culture we are, I don't want us to become a company where we are just ticking boxes. I want us to be the company where the culture exists, because that's the right thing to do. So the policy needs to really encourage the culture. And that's where I've come through with that. And I do feel, and I mentioned this very early, right at the beginning, it's a journey and an evolution and not a revolution. And it takes time, and we're on that journey. And I look around now with the diversity we have within Bolney, and we have quite a big diversity of different types of people within Bolney, which is really great to see. But we are still missing some areas where you could say, well, actually, we don't have anybody of colour working for Bolney. It's not that for wanting to, it's just that those sort of people haven't applied for roles at Bolney. But also we have a cellar door, a very busy cellar door, and a cafe restaurant on site as well. We do a lot of tours. So for me, developing the culture with the team and embracing that, and the whole team embracing that, which they are doing really well now, it means we can embrace it with every person that walks through the door as well. And we think that that's really important too. So what we've come to and what we've done as a business is not seeing diversity as the colour of a person's skin or the sex orientation, for example. It's any and every difference. And that could be, we've got people here with mental health disabilities, we've got people here with a physical disability, we've got a whole range, a whole gamut of different things. And I think it's about not thinking about that and focusing on that. It's just about respecting everybody for who they are. And you don't necessarily need to like everybody either, you just need to respect them. So for me, inclusion is about respecting everybody. The culture I'm trying to create at Bolney is about respect for each and every one of us, and we don't get that right. We've recently actually done personal insights for everybody here as a team, and that's gone down really, really well with the team, where they can actually understand each other's differences and why somebody might talk like that, or why somebody might walk in the morning and not say hello, because maybe they're feeling very anxious on that morning and it's not them being rude. So it's trying to break down all of those barriers for me. And if I can do that with the team and we can do that with each other, then that spreads out wider. So that's what we've tried to achieve at Bolney. So it's just a little snapshot from me. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Sam. I mean, I've heard you tell bits of that story before, and great to hear a bit more detail today. And I think it's a great example of where, particularly one of our bigger producers, having that leadership is just so critical to instilling that culture within the organization. So a phenomenal example that we can all definitely look to. As a final example, I'll share some of the experience that I've had in an effort to try and do better within this area. So, before I started the working group, I really wanted to think about what we could do within our own business, Blackboot Winery. So we're really tiny. If you haven't come across us, we're very small. We've got no employees. It's myself and my husband. And I've got a full-time day job. So we're very resource constrained. We've got very tight budgets. So we don't have a lot of areas that we can make an impact in. But, we did sit and think at the time about the commitments that we wanted to make, the principles that we stand by whilst we're a business of two. And then hopefully, as we grow to who knows how big, we want this to be the foundation and absolutely embedded within our own culture. So we wrote this charter that you can see on screen here, committing to an approach of allyship and collaboration with representative groups. We commit to share our time and resources to support the path to a wine career for young people from underrepresented groups, and we committed to being an inclusive place to visit. The area that really struck a chord with me was the underrepresentation in our industry. So many initiatives and sponsorships have been launched over the past 2 years that are seeking to enable people from underrepresented backgrounds to study for the WSET, their MW, and more. And there's a range of programs out there that we're gathering lots of attention and support, funding, etc., for these to great success, which are brilliant. And we're seeing those coming to fruition now and individuals getting those places as a result. However, to me, it felt like we still didn't quite have enough individuals already dedicated to the wine industry to apply for these offers, and we need to increase the funnel. We need to ensure that there were more people that were coming in that had the interest to get themselves to a position where they personally are willing to commit enough to a career in wine that they'd be prepared to undertake the big study effort that it is for WSET or goodness, even MW or more. So when when we think about how each of us gets into the wine industry, people often do so today via family or friend recommendations, or maybe they grew up with parents that were passionate about wine. But what if you didn't? What if your parents, perhaps they don't even drink at all? How is it possible to know or understand that amazing careers in wine exist? When you do have people that maybe didn't have that sort of family driver towards it, they often fall into it. So, how do we create more of an active route into the wine industry for people from all backgrounds? Careers that we can offer here are really varied, they're very fulfilling, and they're often really distinct from a career path and appealing to many individuals, particularly compared to a job where you're sitting behind a computer screen all day. That's the beauty of our industry. They're really varied and they give, very rich experiences from a professional perspective. So that considering that our winery is based in a really diverse community in Battersea in London, South London, we decided that an active step that we could take was to make our winery a source for young people who are at the stage of deciding the career path that they want to follow. Now, this was no mean feat. So we were introduced to an agency, Reed & Partnership, that supports careers education in London. And they searched and searched and searched for a school willing to speak to an alcohol business. And it wasn't easy. But thankfully, we finally found one open-minded deputy head of a state religious school in Wandsworth. So together we constructed a plan and an agenda for a visit from students to the winery. So we wanted to explain to them firsthand what a career in wine could entail. We were delighted to be joined by Greg Dunn from Ponton College, and who heads the wine division, and Amanda Curry, who works for our distributor Hallgarten, so that she could share the experience of a sales role in wine. And we spent a very bizarre, honestly, 90 minutes talking to a group of 15 to 17-year-olds about careers in wine. So I have a few things to show you from this. We prepared a video, which we sent to the school ahead so that the kids could watch the video and just get an idea if this is something that would be of interest. So there's a screenshot there of the video. And we also then created some information sheets, some resources. In addition to some great collateral from the team at Plumpton, we produced this information sheet of the different types of roles that you could have in the wine industry, which the working group had really put together between us. And, really important to see how wide the roles are, and really they can attract such a wide range of skills. And we really focused to give information to try and inspire that they could think about a career in our industry and why it might suit them and what it could offer. So, we did this in partnership, not only with the school, but with Reed & Partnership, Central London Careers Hub. And it took us a while to find them, honestly. We learned a lot at that session, what went well and lots of what we could do differently. But it was great because it felt we're taking a step, and we got good feedback from the agency and from the school that actually schools currently are really crying out for businesses, any businesses, but businesses like ours are unusual to them. They really want the opportunity for school kids to get firsthand insight into what different careers can look like and what they can offer. So that's it felt to us like a pretty straightforward thing for us to be able to do, and great that we have a local community we've got a big population, so hopefully many schools that we can invite there. And the goal that I felt, whilst we're a small business, if we can generate the interest, then I know that I've got great partners in all of you that are listening today that do have big organizations that might be in a position to offer entry-level roles and certainly work experience. So, if anybody is interested in that piece particularly, definitely reach out to me, and happy to connect you, because last week actually I got reconnected with the employer engagement manager at the Central London Careers Hub, and now she's writing a brief about the opportunity to engage with the wine industry. And she's told me just how desperate the schools are for great work experience. So, there's many opportunities. If you're closer to London, it will be better, but I'm sure that there are similar organizations across the UK that we could connect in with. And I could also ask this London team if there was a regional equivalent, if anyone was interested in looking to replicate what we've done, and happy to share our plan, our agenda, and lots of our tips of what we'll do differently next time. We're planning to do another one before the summer holidays, so we're just looking forward to getting that agenda in and taking on some of the lessons, and hopefully continuing to learn how we can successfully engage with young people at that stage in their decision making on their career, and hopefully inspire them to join us in the wine industry in a couple of years. Great. Well, if with that, I welcome back Warwick, Helen, Ruth, Sam, and then over to Joanna to run our quick panel.
Thanks, Lindsay, and thank you to Lindsay, Warwick, Sam, and Helen and Ruth for your inspiring stories. It was really great listening to you, and I'm sure everyone who's with us have learned a lot and are taking great examples to follow. We don't have that many questions for you guys, so please, to all our attendees, just shoot whatever questions you may have on the Q&A. We had a really good one from I don't remember who, but I have here the question. Sorry about that. So we have one for Sam. Sam, you mentioned people of color as an example that haven't applied for a role. Do you feel that there is a reason for this? And how do we make sure that a diverse mix of people apply for roles within the industry?
Yeah, I've just sent a quick response back to that as well, but I think it's the location of where we are. There aren't people of colour locally living near us, and travelling to rural vineyards is quite difficult. So maybe and I wonder if that's the issue with other vineyards as well, but I think maybe what we could do is when we advertise is to reach out further with our advertising, and think of creative ways maybe as well. How can we get people to us? Is there a way that we can help support that if that's very difficult for somebody? Or could there be a way of working where some of it's remote as well as being on site as well, which might make that easier for people as well? So maybe it's how we reach out and advertise and how we embrace that allow different people to apply. I think that's possibly the issue.
Thank you. Chris has also asked, what should Sustainable Wines of Great Britain be doing regarding diversity and inclusion? Because these are two, sustainability is not just about the environment, it's also about social and economic sustainability. I don't know, Ruth, would you like to?
Just a suggestion, and that is we as members of Walpole are signed up to their sustainability manifesto, and they incorporate D&I to some extent within their sustainability manifesto, and that's really with a view to an equal and respectful working conditions within the luxury industry. But that would cover things like ensuring that there's a living wage paid, just gender equity, reducing the median, the gender pay gap, that sort of thing. I mean, it is actually they've now actually drawn it out as far as focusing in a little bit further on it, but it is part of the 4 pillars of the Walpole Sustainability Manifesto. So I do think it could be woven into the Sustainable Wine Scheme of Great Britain in a similar way, because ultimately it can cover actually quite a broad spectrum of areas to ensure that that's all covered as part of that, and it could be just part of the, I suppose, a pledge when you sign up as a member.
Thank you. Now,
to that as well, Joanna. I mean, I think we set up the D&I working group because we knew that we needed to put some energy and intention towards this. But I think it would be great if we got to a point where we were redundant, and the principles could be really integrated into the rest of the working groups at WineGB and across the organization. So, we're really open as a working group to really engage with others and to hear suggestions on how we can share some of this across the BAU, let's say, of WineGB.